We've been using Samsung's S24 Ultra for a week now, and so far it is a great phone, but our partner OPPO wanted to send us the Find X7 Ultra, and it looks absolutely incredible in terms of the specs. It looks very promising, so in this video, we're gonna be comparing it to see just how well it stacks up to the S24 Ultra by comparing everything from the designs, the speakers, and especially the cameras, because this thing has an insane camera system. So let's go ahead and get this thing unboxed. Ooh, that's a tight fit. All right, let's get this thing out, and oh, look at that, that's interesting. Wow, look at this, it's got this really nice vegan leather. Feels super nice and smooth, especially when you're holding it like this. Nice grip, but dang, look at that design. This is way different. A lot of phones these days look like this, the S24 Ultra, where you have glass, you have the camera bumps, really nice and simple, but this thing is all out. Look at this massive camera ring right on top with these cameras that just stick out at you like mad. I really like this kind of glossy design aspect here, plus the leather. This is definitely unique from what you usually see. In terms of the camera bumps, you can see that the S24 Ultra has this really simple, clean layout, but the OPPO just goes crazy. This massive, I think they call it the Cosmos camera ring, sticks out like crazy, which probably means it's gonna have some good cameras on the inside. I believe this is Hasselblad, and it almost looks like you could spin this thing with all these little ridges on the side. It definitely looks cool. And look at this, right on top, the OPPO actually has an additional speaker grill, which the S24 Ultra doesn't have. You can see another speaker grill here on the bottom, and you also get that little notch at the top of the display, so it has multiple speaker grills, which sounds pretty promising. In terms of the button layout, it's pretty similar here. You have the power button, the volume rockers, but the OPPO also has this mechanical little ringer switch. Oh man, that's already quite fun to play with. And of course, they both have USB-C on the bottom with the little SIM tray, but the S24 Ultra comes with that S Pen, which is pretty cool. And while I'm setting this up, I do want to mention that the OPPO does come with a charging brick in the box, which the S24 Ultra doesn't, but this is not your regular charging brick because it supports 100-watt fast charging, which will charge from 0 to 100% in 26 minutes, which is literally insane. Not only that, but the OPPO also supports 50-watt wireless charging compared to 15 on the S24 Ultra. This thing's the beast in terms of charging. And now moving over to the front, I definitely like how the OPPO feels in the hand. It's got the rounded edges all the way around, so it feels really nice and smooth. And these corners are also rounded, so they feel nice in your palm, whereas the S24 Ultra kind of digs in because it has these like super sharp boxy corners, so definitely feels nicer for the OPPO. And as far as the display, they both look really good. They both have the really minimal hole punch cameras, but I do think that the bezels are a little bit thinner potentially on the S24 Ultra, so they look nice and uniform compared to the OPPO, which looks like it has a little bit thicker bezels, but still looks nice and clean, especially because of the curved glass, which makes it look thinner on the sides and has a really cool effect. And I really love how they make the speaker grill at the top of the bezel look basically invisible, like you have to look so close to see it. But with that said, let's do a speaker quality comparison. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me it sounds like the Samsung is a little bit louder, but it sounds like they're pushing up the vocals too high, while the OPPO does sound a little bit more natural, and I think the OPPO does have a little bit more bass, more punchy bass as well, so overall they're fairly similar. Now, in terms of the actual OS, the speed, the snappiness, I'd say that both of them feel very, very smooth. We have ColorOS on the OPPO, which is really nice. I like a lot of the new features, especially like the file dock, which works really well. I actually made a full video on it showing off the new AI features, and I really like it, so if you want to check it out, definitely watch that video after this one's over. And now with that said, let's get into the display quality. Now, interestingly, both of these have 6.8-inch displays, and both also have 1440p resolution, which works while at the maximum 120 Hz refresh rate, which is really nice and why this feels so smooth on both of these. I would say that I really like how the colors pop on the OPPO, especially with their new Pro XDR display, which does have Dolby Vision support, which is awesome. The S24 Ultra does not support that. Now, in terms of the actual display brightness, the OPPO does go up to 4500 nits local peak, versus 2600 on the S24 Ultra, which actually does work outside at that brightness, while the OPPO just goes up to 1600 nits outside. But if I manually turn them up all the way like this, turning on high performance mode with maximum display brightness, they look very similar. I think the S24 Ultra is a little bit brighter here to me, but if I start to turn it and look at it from the side, I think the viewing angles on the OPPO actually are better. Now, in terms of HDR video playback in YouTube, you guys can see that they both look practically identical. In some areas, the OPPO actually looks a little bit brighter, but the colors look great. And I almost have to say that I like the contrast and the pop a little bit better on the OPPO. Another difference I do notice is that the Samsung does have better anti-reflectivity coatings, so I'm seeing less kind of gray from the ceiling tiles showing up on the display, so it looks kind of more black, has deeper blacks. But the OPPO does have the better viewing angles and still looks really good. Moving on to the performance, they both actually have the same Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is awesome, but the OPPO does come with 16 gigs of RAM compared to 12 on the base S24 Ultra, so you should get probably a little bit better multitasking with the OPPO. And now let's get into the biggest part of this comparison and this video, which is the camera comparison. Now, OPPO has their new Hypertone camera system, which has the first ever quad main camera system, which basically has 4 rear cameras, all with 50 megapixel sensors, which is very impressive. You have the 0.6x ultra wide, the 1x main, the 3x telephoto, which is a periscope, and another 6x telephoto periscope. Basically the first phone in the world that has 2 periscopes, and it basically covers the full range of zoom lengths with optical lenses, similar to the S24 Ultra, which instead of the 6x, it just has a 5x optical on the high end. Now, instead of going 4 cameras with 50 megapixels, the S24 Ultra takes a different route with 200 megapixels on the 1x main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 10 megapixel 3x zoom, which is a much smaller sensor than what you get in the OPPO with the 50 megapixel. And then finally, they have the 50 megapixel 5x periscope on the S24 Ultra. And then on the front cameras, the S24 has only a 12 megapixel selfie cam, while you get 32 megapixels with the OPPO. Starting off by comparing the selfie cameras, you can see just how much the extra 32 megapixel resolution helps on the OPPO, leading to higher sharpness and more detail. And then moving on to the main cameras, the OPPO uses Sony's brand new 2nd gen 1-inch sensor. Yes, 1 inch. The Light 900, which is really impressive. It's very efficient, and looking at the quality, you can see just how much more natural bokeh you get in the background, looking more like a professional DSLR camera. And even compared to the 200 megapixel sensor in the S24 Ultra, the OPPO looks better because it's actually over 60% bigger in terms of the sensor, which will make low light photography a lot cleaner with less noise. Now, moving on to the ultra-wide camera, the OPPO looks really sharp and detailed because of the 50 megapixel resolution sensor compared to just 12 on the Samsung. And not only that, but it actually has a faster f2.0 aperture compared to f2.2, which does help in low light as well, so it's definitely the clear winner. But the biggest difference of all is gonna be the 3x telephoto camera, which is actually a periscope on the Find X7 Ultra, coming with a 50 megapixel sensor that's actually 300% larger than the 10 megapixel sensor inside of the S24 Ultra. And across all the photos we've taken, you can see better quality and detail with the OPPO because of that huge sensor and the higher resolution, especially when in low light or for portrait photography. And then finally, we have the 6x periscope zoom on the OPPO versus 5 on the S24 Ultra. And I've got to say that the 135mm focal length looks great. You can zoom really far, up to 120x on the OPPO compared to 100 on the S24, which, by the way, both of those are way too far for my liking. So comparing at, let's say, 25x, that's really nice for seeing things very far away while still getting decent quality, and they both look pretty similar between the two. Now, on top of all of that, I do want to mention that the OPPO Find X7 Ultra does have their Hypertone image engine, which gives you great quality photos that look a lot more natural and not over-processed and over-HDR'd like you find on a lot of other smartphone cameras. They also have their Hasselblad portrait mode, which comes with really nice and natural-looking bokeh compared to other brands that look really fake. And it also works up to 9 meters away, which is really impressive. And to my surprise, you can even shoot portrait photos using the 6x lens, which gives a really nice DSLR pro camera feel to them. And OPPO also has their master mode, which gives you full control over camera details like the shutter speed, the ISO, white balance, and more, sort of like the pro camera mode on the S24 Ultra. And because of that Hasselblad camera, you're gonna get the professional looking characteristics of the Hasselblad medium format camera. So there you guys go, those were all of the differences compared, and I've gotta say that if you want a really unique phone, this thing really hits the spot, especially with the design, with the white gloss, that vegan leather that feels really nice, and especially the display that matches up to what you get on the S24 Ultra, the speakers that are basically just as good, and the cameras that are incredibly impressive and in some ways beating out what you get in the S24 Ultra. I've got to say, I'm really impressed with the OPPO. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and definitely subscribe by clicking that button above. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.